on this week's episode of In the Suite with Tina Powell.
Be a master of something. I think the more you can distinguish yourself and stand out, I really believe that there's this generational shift where everybody thinks being a generalist is the thing. And I actually really disagree with that. I think if you're a really deep expert on a topic, there are businesses that are going to value that you have a level of mastery on a specific topic that's going to be highly valuable to them. What we like to say is that when you reflect on the decisions and choices that people make, all decisions are not only financial decisions, but they're actually a way to signal your value system.
Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Today, we take a seat in the suite, leaning into grit, mastery, and growth with our special guest, Shruti Joshi, Chief Operating Officer at Facet Wealth. Facet Wealth is a FinTech company offering personalized and unbiased financial advice that integrates into every facet of life at an affordable and flat fee. Shruti, a powerful Indian Fortune 15 executive, is widely recognized for driving efficient, rapid growth at B2C and B2B companies across every stage, from startups to enterprise businesses. A former consumer tech founder, Shruti has invested and advised many businesses across multiple industries on business strategy, client acquisition, and growth. Shruti was an early investor in Facet Wealth. Before Facet, she was an equity partner at Altman and Company, now Altman Solon. Prior to that, she was an executive at Verizon Communications, where she led new acquisition growth for consumer FiOS and core network products. Shruti earned an MBA from Columbia Business School and a BS in Business from the University of Southern California. Shruti's knowledge is impressive and inspiring. For women leaders who aspire to own, operate, run, or raise money for a FinTech venture, today's discussion will give you a clear path. And for women in business looking to excel, Shruti's own grit and personal growth is something we can get inspired about. In fact, one of the many gifts you'll discover about Shruti Joshi in today's episode is how she's helping to shape communities around the world. Shruti was a keynoter for Nicole Casperson's FinTech is Femme conference, sharing her journey as a professional woman in tech. She's also has some great thoughts on how women can use their voices to create change and inspire others, and what it takes to be an effective Chief Operating Officer in the suite. Wow, Shruti Joshi, take a seat in the suite. I am so excited and deeply honored to have you here in the suite to visit on this awesome Friday day. We are going to have an incredible discussion, particularly for women founders and women in FinTech. I know that you're going to be able to give us insights, a competitive advantage, and a lot of inspiration. So first, I want to just say hello. How are you doing today on this Friday? Yay, Friday!
Yay, it's Friday. Thank you so much for having me, Tina. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day. So, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fall day. So you're in New York City, and I wanted to rewind earlier to this month. Nicole Casperson's FinTech is Femme event. I went to the first one at the Roxy. One I would have, I wanted to be in two places at once. I saw that you were the keynote speaker. What a huge, huge honor. I want you to tell us all about it. Oh, I saw some of the tweets. I saw some of the posts on social. Congratulations, Shruti. That is a huge, huge honor.
Thank you. Yeah, it was such a spectacular evening with so many incredible women. The energy was fierce. There was just a lot of honesty and openness in the various stories that each of the panelists shared. And I thought Nicole did such a great job just facilitating a very authentic conversation. So I was so happy to be a part of it. It was, again, another beautiful night in New York. And I just thought, what a special event to put a group of women on a stage to talk about their experiences and their stories and share the tough things they've been through, the things that matter to them. It was really, really special.
That's how I felt. It was like I got goosebumps. I literally cried. on the first FinTech is Femme event that I went to, because to your point, I found that the stories were so real and they were things that I could relate to as a woman, a lot of origin stories about getting here. The other thing that I feel that FinTech is Femme is doing a great job on, and that is this idea of being now financial planning and making wealth, making tools and making systems accessible to people of all backgrounds and at all stages of their life. What was the main takeaway for most of us who couldn't be there at the FinTech is Femme event? Was there any main thing that was like rose to the top?
Yeah, I think generally it was everybody had a very different story that they were sharing. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, like my main message was just the concept of really a few things. One is grit and how grit is necessary in any type of career that was meaningful, and just the emphasis on mastery and how, the 10,000 hours concept, or really putting in time to mastering a craft and how important that is. And I think the last piece was just to take risks and go for it because no one really cares. So it was this pressure that sometimes we feel as people that we're going to make a change, or we're going to go after something that makes us a little bit vulnerable to failure, and how that might hold us back sometimes. But actually, when you take those leaps, you realize that people are so worried about themselves, they're not really concerned about you. The big message was just to feel safe in charting your own path, and that everybody has had some sort of struggle on their journey, sort of like their own stories of how they got there. I think for me, it was really important to talk about things that I have felt have really made a difference in my career. And those are grit, mastery, and just this concept of going for it, because you really only have one life. And if people are thinking about what other people are worried about or the perception of something, like none of that really matters. People just end up the people that are really in your corner want the best for you no matter what. And everybody else is so focused on their own lives that it doesn't matter. Every time I've taken a leap in my career where I was worried, like, what are the optics of this? I just, I kept talking about no one cares. And so you have to do what's right for you and be true to who you are and what you want on this very precious time that we've got on this planet. So it was a really, really special event just to hear everybody's stories. I was very inspired.
And they were definitely inspired by you. And I think what you've done masterfully is throughout your career, you've had a diversity of experiences in different industries, FinTech for one, communication, medical devices. And I'm very curious when I see women who have come from such diverse backgrounds in industry. Did FinTech call you, or did you call it? How did you get here?
Yeah, I think that I don't really know that it was about FinTech per se, right? I think that there's a mentality that I've always had, and it drives some of my closest people crazy, but it's this questioning of why do we do it this way? And could we do it differently? And could we do it infinitely better? And I think that when you look at what's happening in FinTech, there's a lot of that type of innovation and change that's in play, right? There's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of thinking about how people's money and finances affect their lives in a much bigger way than just investing money or ROI. And I think when you think about my personal beliefs and the things that I value around constant evolution and seeking growth and pushing boundaries, when you think about FinTech, it's a beautiful industry where that type of change is happening. And I think there was this magnetic kind of force that pulled me into it. And of course, knowing our founders certainly didn't hurt. So I think it's a little bit of, it's less about FinTech per se. It's more about what's happening in the space that requires a disruptive mentality, which I just was really drawn to.
Right. Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? It's a calling. And to the founders, right? Anders Jones, Patrick McKenna, and Brent Weiss. And I love, I'll use what your chief evangelist and co-founder, I'll use a direct quote from him. We shared a vision of a financial planning firm that gave millions of people access to the kind of financial advice that we believe in to be essential to living well. Bam. That is a mic drop if I ever heard it. And I really think that the mission now, the industry as a whole, and you're a direct to consumer type platform. But I think that this discussions around money involves so much now. We are laddering in wellness. We are laddering in the career part. We are laddering in what's our purpose and what our mission is life. And it sounds to me that the mission for Facet Wealth is something that was magnetic to you, and hence why you're here as their chief operating officer.
1,000%. Yeah, we're enabling everyone to enrich their lives beyond expectation. That is our purpose. And that is a much bigger concept than, hey, invest your money with us and here's a retirement plan. It's a much bigger idea. And that definitely has a lot of opportunity and a lot of need to nurture and bring to market a service that can deliver on that purpose. And so that's just the most exciting thing for me to be involved with at this point in my life.
I know there's a really exciting story because Anders, Patrick, and Brent, and this is the part, Shruti, that I love. I definitely believe in the power of universe, and that women get called into, all of a sudden an opportunity will be at their front door. So how did the founders find you?
Yeah, so I've known Anders and Patrick. I had the pleasure of meeting Brent at the early founding days of Facet, but I've known Patrick and Anders through the years, just in other walks of life, in other parts of, totally different industries, actually. And when they put Facet together, I felt honored. I was one of their first calls. They were seeking friends and family investment. And I had just sold equity in a partnership that I was in. And I was really actually looking for mission-driven companies to support. And so I was an early investor, and they said, well, that investment comes with a little request, and that is, can you join our advisory board? So because I had spent a big part of my career helping businesses to drive efficient and rapid growth and to define end-to-end client experiences and help businesses scale, that was a skill set that was important to the founders to have in terms of guidance, through those early days at Facet. And so the one thing that really drew me to what Anders, Patrick, and Brent were trying to do was this mission, this purpose, right? That they were really trying to build something that would change the lives of consumers. And so that was the start. And, I've been kind of on the sidelines since the start of the company. But last year, really the late part of 2020, Anders called and he said, we're kind of hitting this inflection point of growth. And I think having your work and your brain on our challenges a little bit more hands-on can make sure that we seamlessly transition to this next phase of growth in the best way possible. And so I came in last January as a consultant to help rapidly sort of build infrastructure for consumer scale. And in August, I came on full time as the COO to really help drive a transformation into this next phase of growth. So that's the story. That's kind of how it all happened.
Well, you're a powerful Indian Fortune 15 executive and founder with years of experience. You were at Verizon, you were at Altman Solon, the world's largest global strategy consulting firm focused on telecom, media, and tech. And here's I think that the founders were really super smart. And I think the women listening right now to this episode, I want them to so be inspired that there's roles in the C-suite, there's roles in leadership, they're available to women that can utilize and leverage their skill sets. And you don't have to be the co-founder in order to make that happen. What are some of the unique roles and aspects of your role? Because Chief Operating Officer is a big term. And again, I think our mission here in the suite, Shruti, is that I want women to see potential where they are right now, or maybe they've got to make a big, bold career move, that perhaps a Chief Operating Officer is something that they should do.
Yeah, so the Chief Operating Officer role at companies is one of the most misunderstood. And I think the reason for that is that it completely varies company to company. So there's a joke that the COO is all the things the CEO doesn't want to do. And there's a little bit of truth to that sometimes, but it really depends on the company, right? In some companies, depending on the structure, the COO has a responsibility that looks a little bit more like a financial and legal type role. And in some companies, the COO is much more around overseeing day-to-day operation. And there's sort of different formats and different configurations and everything in between. For us, it was very important to find a role at Facet that would help the business achieve its objectives. And so when Anders and I sat down and talked about my background and skill set, what the team was missing, and what we really needed to do for this next leg of growth, we defined the COO role as one that focuses on, of course, leveraging my background and helping businesses to drive growth. So all of the sales and marketing and revenue pieces sit in my organization. And the second component was to really redefine the end-to-end client experience. And so our planning organization is also within the COO function as well. And we have about 80-ish CFPs on staff that service clients. And then the last piece, I would say, are just the operating type activities you'd expect. So helping to define the strategic priorities in the annual strategic planning process with our CFO, helping to sort of oversee some of the bigger programs that are happening in the company in the day-to-day operation. I, for example, send out an email every week that outlines what's happened in the business and, kind of focuses on client stories and even things that are happening across the employee base. So it's a little bit of everything in some ways, but the first two pillars I would say are about driving the right kind of efficient and scalable growth. And then, of course, really delivering an excellent service to our clients and continuing to push the innovation around that.
Is there like a power move or a certain course or a certain core competency that for women, particularly who aspire to be a chief operating officer, that right now, before they even walk in, that they could get some refresher, a mini executive MBA course? What would be your advice to them? Because again, you were promoted to this role. You obviously served on the advisory board, so there was a familiarity of your skill set. I think, though, that it's incumbent on us as women, especially if we aspire, is that every year we've got to address the skills gap, Shruti. So what would be your advice to women? Where should they start in order to up their game?
Yeah. Number one, I think that it's very important to get as much general management experience as possible for a COO type role. There's a high degree of just general management skill, project management skill set that is very, very essential, because whenever you're building any type of go-to-market plan that involves cross-functional teaming, which for us, that's a really big part of how we go to market, that skill set, that skill building and experiences will really be transferable and scalable. So I would say really solid project management skills, building, whether it's at the current company you're at, getting projects where you can manage cross-functional teams in a project setting, or you maybe get Scrum trained and you learn Agile, any type of project management skill would be essential. I think in addition to that, it's trying to better understand what drives a business. So if you're a COO, you're going to be responsible for driving KPIs for the company. And so understanding the mechanics of organizations, spending some time with financial partners, what are the drivers of the margin of your business? How do you generate revenue? Having a better understanding of the inner workings of the company, especially if you're working for a for-profit enterprise, is really, really another important skill. And then the third, I would say, is be a master of something. I think the more you can distinguish yourself and stand out, I really believe that there's this generational shift where everybody thinks being a generalist is the thing. And I actually really disagree with that. I think if you're a really deep expert on a topic, there are businesses that are going to value that you are you have a level of mastery on a specific topic that's going to be highly valuable to them. And in my case, it was very much scaling and growing businesses and, this CX piece, but it's different for everybody. And I think if you can have some of those general management skills and understanding business acumen and marry it with something very niche or niche, I just think that that's kind of the right combination to land some type of a COO job in the future.
Look at my arm, Shruti. I've got goosebumps after you said that. Hey, ladies, need inspiration for your day? Head on over to In the Suite Pod at Instagram and discover the 8 ways to be successful, tips for leading boldly in 2023, and quotes to supercharge your day. Here's one of my favorites. Procrastination is the grave in which opportunity is buried. Remember, follow In the Suite Pod at Instagram. Something I'm deeply curious about, because you've not only together with you and the co-founders and your entire organization, how many employees are there right now?
About 270-ish. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool size. Also, congratulations, because you're on the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing companies based in Baltimore, and you're hiring. Okay. Hello, hiring. Follow Facet Wealth on LinkedIn, Twitter, connect with Shruti, and you can even go to the website and find those open positions. Again, we like to be a gateway here for women
Absolutely.
to find their next awesome opportunity. Are you fully remote?
We're a fully virtual company.
Okay.
And we do get together in moments and in team pockets, much more in I guess we're post-COVID at this point with things opening back up, but we are a virtual first company.
Okay. And so how have you managed? Another thing, I'm waiting for somebody to crack the code on this. I myself found that running a virtual company has its challenges about creating this awesome culture where people really, that's magnetic. I love your word magnetic today. How would you describe the culture at Facet, and how do we bring some of those wins to our own organization?
I think that for us, we have spent a lot of time defining what we're about and working really hard to promise and deliver on that. And so I said to you earlier, we're enabling everyone to enrich their lives beyond expectation. And what our service really does is it provides invaluable and impartial financial advice and services that help our clients thrive in every facet of life. That definition is really the starting point, because once you understand what we're about, then what we're doing is, number one, we're doing the right thing for clients by putting them first, period. We've defined it, so we don't negotiate that away in every single action because we're so clear on what we're about. And the second piece, as it relates to culture, is we're doing the right thing for our employees. And we have an alignment between the type of person that really fits this culture. So it kind of starts with knowing who we are and what we're about. And then it's attracting people that represent those same values. Right. So I think we do a really good job. Our people team is amazing at hiring in people that demonstrate, for us, it's all about having that growth seeking, ever evolving, growing mentality. And so once we bring that type of person in, we then create programs that really help our employees connect. So there's a lot of camaraderie that we can generate even in a virtual environment. And a lot of programs that we build around recognition and sharing what people are doing. So it's just good old-fashioned communication. It's more challenging virtually, but the more we cross-collaborate, the more we share what our plans are, and the more transparent we are. We are a transparent business to clients in our fee structure, but we're transparent to our employees. So there isn't like a different facet internally and externally. They're so aligned that I think it makes the culture very tangible and very consistent. And so I don't think that there's, look, it's challenging, right? You can put programs around it, but I think our key to that culture is really defining who we are and then having an alignment between who we bring in, because then it's just the connection between employees. There's this relatability and value system, and we just create programs that facilitate that type of communication and connection.
And I'm loving that people are considering financial services for employment, because I think that the employee of today directly benefits with the products and the services that the company themselves are offering. So it's no longer just you just showing up and that, yes, you have a role within the company, but you yourself benefit. I love this alignment that you've talked about, that both the consumer that you are trying to attract to the Facet platform, or who benefits from Facet, that can also be that employee. It's an interchangeable relationship.
Yeah, I was talking a lot about brand yesterday with our entire organization. We had an all hands, which is one of those ways we stay connected. And I talked about how the best modern brands have that type of alignment, because there's an authenticity to it that matters in the world more than it ever has. And so we really do identify, and our employees do get our service as a part of being an employee at Facet, which is so important so they can experience and understand what our clients go through. But I really think that that's the future. If you look at any category and any beloved brand, that's happening.
And so what Facet Wealth is doing is that you're giving access to financial planning to anyone that wants it on a subscription model?
Yeah, so we are a subscription model. And the reason for that is, there's a reason for that. If you think about what we are doing, we're definitely driving a category shift. But a lot of the success we've had is really driven by a couple of things. One is the business model. So our incentive structure, which is subscription, is oriented around doing the right thing for the client all the time. So we don't charge based on how much you invest. Right? That's
right. Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge. The incentive model drives so much of the behavior in any category. And so for us, investments are included in the fee. It's table stakes for us. You're not paying more or less if you're investing $25,000 or $500,000. And that's not the way the industry works. In fact, the industry won't even serve people if they don't meet a certain threshold of investments. And so we get to service a broader array of clients, which is a really big deal. And I think the second piece is we're really redefining what financial planning should be. And we're putting the consumer in the center and designing a service that really addresses the needs of Americans today. So I think there's sort of like we're just taking a really different approach in the market.
What do you see as, I guess, the future of financial planning? How does wellness manifest itself in a financial planning relationship ideally? I don't know that we're there yet, but where are we aspiring to be as an industry to get there?
I think there are parts of the industry that are focused on this, but by and large, a lot of it feels like lip service to me. If your incentive model is oriented around a percentage of AUM, it's going to be hard for you to really sincerely deliver financial wellness, right? You're more concerned with capturing as much assets to manage to cover your costs. So I do think that the incentive model really matters. But to answer your question about financial health, money is the number one cause of stress in Americans' lives. It's the number two cause of divorce. How can you be healthy if you're stressed? Everybody has a lot more awareness today on the really negative effects of stress and anxiety. They're major blockers of inner peace and happiness and wellness. And what we like to say is that when you reflect on the decisions and choices that people make, all decisions are not only financial decisions, but they're actually a way to signal your value system, right? And the more aligned the choices and the way you live are aligned to that value system, you're going to be much less stressed. If you're proactive in your finances, you're going to feel better about the decisions you're making. And that piece, a lot of our clients say, it just feels like this sigh of relief. Like I've got Facet in my corner, and it just feels like I have someone to call if things come up, and I'm one step ahead of all of the decisions and sort of that knowledge set that I need to live the life that I want to live. And so that's amazing, right? When you think about the power of how financial planning in a way is life planning, if it's done right. And so that leads to that type of kind of inner peace, right? That alignment of values and the way you live, and a knowing that I'm one step ahead. I'm proactive about the choices I'm making, and having that type of peace is health. I don't think there's wellness without financial wellness.
That's a absolutely fantastic point. And one of I think the main takeaways here for people there's any action plan that you have as a result of listening to Shruti here on this podcast, is to understand how you're being charged. If you are in a financial planning relationship right now with an advisor, or Facet is not a robo advisor too. I want to be very, very clear on that. There's actually people to talk to, and we're real big proponents here about the CFP, Certified Financial Planner. The rigor of passing that exam is immense. If you're not in the industry and you're working in hospitality or healthcare, it is an extreme undertaking for a financial professional to earn those credentials. And you need a combination of both today, I think, as we manage our health, as we manage our finance, to have a little bit, even as we manage marketing, we have a combination of software tools, but we're also a bunch great people, great ideas, hands on deck, ideating, visualizing, mind mapping, and all those kind of software tools. But if you're going to accomplish anything, you still need to be real, and you still need to talk to people. So Shruti, I wanted to also discuss the idea of there are more and more women who are FinTech female founders, and you both being on the advisory board of many kinds of different companies. What would be your advice? How do women approach these kind of conversations and get the capital and get the funding that they need?
Yeah, so I have co-founded a business. I did raise capital and have had exposure to many different companies that have gone through the process, including Facet Series C last year. And I think if you're starting out, the really important thing is to have a really, really solid understanding of what you're doing and the economics of your business. I think that's so, so important, right? Especially if it's a for-profit enterprise, there's got to be an underlying business ambition or objective that drives why you're doing this. And so a very, very good pitch deck is critical, and a pitch deck that doesn't just focus on the upside opportunity or the TAM of a business. It has to do that, but a business that has a very good understanding of how it generates profit. And it's funny because if you reflect on the last several years and look at the investor marketplace, there was a huge obsession with growth, almost at the cost of just good old fashioned unit economics. And so number one, I would say, is great pitch deck with a very deep understanding of how your business makes money. It's very simple, right? Make a service or a product for less than you sell it for. And I think that that's a huge piece that sometimes goes missing. I think the second piece of it is really reach out to people. People want to help. So reach out to networks of people when you're raising that friends and family round. It's amazing how I was so afraid to ask for help. And I was really shocked by how many people wanted to help, whether it was giving me feedback on the pitch deck or writing checks. And the people that believe in you are the people that'll give you that funding in those early days. And you just have to have grit. You just have to kind of grind it out and be comfortable being vulnerable and be okay with the fact that it might go belly up and you're going to do your absolute best. But finding those advocates, I think, is the second piece of how you think about fundraising. Even if you do go out to institutional investors and VCs, it's 100% network. the strength of the introduction and the person that introduces you to an investor plays a very big role in whether they take the meeting and how open they are to funding you. In those early days, it is very much about your reputation and track record and who's vouching for you. And so to me, those kind of two things, right? Have a really good business model, a really good idea, package it well. And the second piece of that is tap into that network. If you don't have a great network, make friends, right? It's that whole sort of 6 degrees of separation. I think it's more like 3 these days. And that really makes all the difference in raising funds in those early days.
Can you describe a time in your life when you really started to dream big and work towards some very important goals? I know that your culture and your upbringing play a huge part, as I believe it to be true of a lot of our guests here in the suite. But there's a fork in the road, and I don't know, for every person, it's a little bit different. But when did you really start to aim high and dream big?
Wow. I would say that I had the extreme fortune of being the daughter of two entrepreneurs that were ultimate growth seekers, adventurers. I've talked about this in the past, but they were like the original YOLO people. And so I think it was really ingrained in me at the very start of my life. I was raised by people that left India, came to Europe first, but they left the country and came to the US with $800. And they were definitely well educated, but they made their own way. And so I think that type of grit and openness to opportunity and just feeling like you never know. I think I remember at a really young age, my mom saying to me, the worst you're going to hear is no. And I was kind of a shy kid. I was actually an introvert in a lot of ways. I wasn't necessarily, I was in some ways extroverted. In many ways, I was a little shy and didn't have a lot of confidence. And I think my mom really pushed me because she was the person that was like, you just got to go for it. The worst you're going to hear is a no. And so when you are raised by that type of those type of people, right, you're going to have this feeling that like, well, you never know, So I think at a young age, I just kind of felt like, oh, what the heck? Let's just see what happens. And I think it came with a lot of trial and error. It was probably not until my 20s. I think my mom always tells people she was a late bloomer, I think it wasn't until my 20s that it kind of clicked for me. So
yeah, because you moved around a lot, right? I was doing some research and I moved in the 6th grade and that was traumatic for me. I can't imagine moving. I think it was 7 times. 7 times. Yeah. 7 times before you're 20. That's really huge.
Yes.
For women is for girls hard.
Oh gosh. Yes. There was lots of mean girls. And what was really fascinating was my parents kept moving not only to different cities across the world, but they also kept increasing sort of the where in the socioeconomic spectrum they sat. So there was this need to be really adaptable and sort of, you get this exposure to a whole different way of living, which I love, by the way, when you meet people that just do something totally different or they live in a different city. I think it's so fun to just compare and understand like, wow, people really do live in such different ways. And I think that openness, I think you're right. That was a huge part of it, that my parents and this exposure to so many different ways of spending your time on this planet. I think that is probably what kind of tipped around my 20s and made me feel like anything's possible.
Did you pick up any hobbies along the way? I'm back to horseback riding. And it was something that I did. Thank you. It was something that I did as a teenager. Now, getting up there, getting on a horse today is a lot different. I have a lot more fear, a huge amount of fear that I needed to conquer.
That's amazing.
But thank you. What do you do for fun? Do you have hobbies?
Oh, yeah, I do. I always feel like there's always something, there's always something new. I did grow up playing competitive sports, which I think is such an important thing. And whenever I hire people, I love hiring athletes or people that have played competitive sports in some way. I always say there's so many at Facet, there's so many athletes and mathletes, but we've got tennis, that was a big sport for me. And I think it was my parents' desire to keep me out of the mall and out of trouble. So they were like, we're going to put her in crazy sports. And I do think that it was a life-changing sport because, as my dad would always say, tennis is an analogy for life. And it is this solo sport. And it's really so much about mental endurance more than anything else. So that was a very life-shaping hobby that I spent growing up. And then I really love music. And so music has been a huge part of my life. I grew up playing many different instruments and singing. And now I have a son, and, music is a huge part of our life. We're always jamming out with guitars and doing ridiculous home shows, and love to read, love to have my mind challenged. So especially love reading things I don't agree with, just to kind of push myself to think differently. And I also love to run, although lately I haven't had as much time, but running is a meditation for me. And then I am a really big believer in meditation, and transcendental meditation has been a life changer for me in terms of energy and just finding a little quiet. But I love to cook. I mean, what do I not love to do? I love to travel. I've been to 70 countries. I think
that's
life,
awesome.
Yeah, life is to be fully enjoyed. And so I try my best to fill it with anything that interests me.
Well, we're going to put a link to a couple of the resources. Again, you mentioned grit, the word. I loved Angela Duckworth's book. I think that needs to be a staple on every woman's leadership bookcase for sure. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, even meditation, has been really, for me, it's been a grounding experience. It's reminding me that I'm just like a little speck here. My life has a purpose, but there's a purpose that goes beyond work. Right now, it's about passion and impact and fulfillment, a lot of the common themes that we talked about. I know that there are people listening who are definitely going to want to get in touch with you. So before our awesome last question for season 3, how do people get in touch with you, Shruti?
Yes, they can follow me on pretty much any social platform. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. And if you just search for my name, I should come up. On Twitter, I think I'm Shruti Joe. And on Instagram, I'm the Shruti Joshi, I think. There's all different handles, but that's one way. And then I think that's probably the best way, through any social channel. I'm pretty active on all of them. And I've had people direct message me on LinkedIn, and I don't check it every day, but I do get in there at least a few times a week.
Fantastic, because you're doing a lot of work, doing great work at Facet. And our question revolves around, again, these themes that we talked about today: aligning yourself with purpose, finding a company with your core beliefs and your values, very magnetic. We are searching for answers. Can you introduce us to a charity, a nonprofit, a GoFundMe, or a cause that you believe in, and why?
Great question. So I am actually on the board of the David Lynch Foundation, which is really focused on providing transcendental meditation to various groups out in the world. So PTSD sufferers, domestic abuse sufferers. During the pandemic, a lot of the frontline workers were offered transcendental meditation as a solution for the anxiety that they were suffering from. It's one of the best scientifically proven cures of PTSD. And there's actual science behind the way that the brain changes in terms of its stress response after using transcendental meditation. And so I think it's an absolute gift to have this type of tool in a life where people are really suffering from an epidemic of anxiety. And so this is something that I feel, whether you're 5 years old all the way through life, this is just one of those gifts. And so this is a charity that I'm very, very supportive of for that reason.
That's a great answer. How do people get started with transcendental meditation?
If you Google David Lynch Foundation and go to their website, there are pages of resource information on how you can find a TM teacher in your local neighborhood. And it's really it's been a life changer for me. And there's just so much scientific evidence. I'm not really a woo-woo person.
Yeah.
I'm the daughter of 2 PhDs in chemistry. And I think for me, meditation was always like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's right for me. That feels like a real time commitment. And I had the pleasure of meeting Bob Roth at an event in Aspen. And he had shared with me, well, just try it. I was kind of expressing skepticism. And after I did, it was so effortless. And there was so much science behind it that I really became a believer. So just going on to the davidlynchfoundation.org website is the best way to learn more about it and how it can be helpful.
Wow. Shruti Joshi, Thank you so much for being here in the suite. You have helped to awaken our senses today. Really, I love what we talked about today. I love getting to learn more about you and your background. Congratulations again on all your success and on your keynote for FinTech is Femme. Nicole Casperson knew what she was doing when she selected you for the position. And it's been wonderful to visit with you here in the suite. I can't wait till you and I get to see each other offline, whether or not it be at New York City or an industry event. And congratulations to you and Facet Wealth for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to have this conversation with you. I really appreciate it, Tina.
You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirschhorn. Our editor-at-large is Kevin Hirschhorn. Our content writers are Dimple Rashandani, Dania Wheeler, and Tina Powell. In the Suite podcast is sponsored by Intentionally, the growth engine design consultancy firm transforming the way financial technology and financial services companies approach marketing. To learn more, visit intention.ly. And please let us know how you enjoyed this episode with the amazing and inspiring Shruti Joshi, and share your thoughts on social media, #InTheSuite. You can connect with Shruti on LinkedIn and visit her website at facetwealth.com. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing and giving us 5-star reviews. We are so, so grateful to you. We've got listeners in 1,262 cities and 61 countries. That's the most we've ever had. And thank you so much. We owe it all to you. We really appreciate you listening. And feel free to email me at tina@inthesuitepodcast.com to pitch guests for season 4, 2023, and let us know who you want to see here in the suite. Again, thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.